Talk now to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who is out and about this morning at a hospital, I believe. So what's the plan then? What's it going to do?
Good morning, Sophie. And not just at any hospital, I'm at the Royal Free, which saved my life when I went through kidney cancer. So as a cancer survivor myself, I could not be more proud to be launching the National Cancer Plan today. It sets out that clear goal of making sure that by 2035, 3/4 of cancer patients diagnosed in our country go on to survive, to live well at least 5 years after their treatment. And that would be a game changer from where we are, because at the moment, cancer is a lottery. And in this country, you are more likely to lose that lottery than if you lived in other countries. And only last week, I lost a good friend of mine to bowel cancer for no other reason than his cancer was not detected fast enough. So I know really well the difference between an NHS that's there for you when you need it and an NHS that doesn't reach you in time. So over the course of the next 10 years, harnessing the breakthroughs in medical science and technology, will diagnose earlier and will treat faster. We'll be able to promote good public health, but also through breakthroughs in genomic medicine, we're going to be able to predict and prevent illness. People are now talking about cancer vaccines. But for anyone watching who thinks, 2035, are you even going to be around then? Well, you won't have to wait a decade to see progress. During the course of this Parliament, we're going to see a return to the cancer standards that should have always been met, but haven't been met for over a decade now, of making sure that you are diagnosed within 28 days or given the all clear. We've actually started to meet that target within our first 18 months in office. But we've got to make sure we get people faster access to treatment as well. And whether that's the £2 billion we're investing in diagnostics to create an extra 9.5 million tests, the £6 billion we're putting into investment in things like the robotic surgery that took my kidney and the cancer out, that's what gives me the confidence and the hope and the expectation that we can go from lagging behind to leading the pack.
I just want to jump in because, you've spoken, very movingly about your own cancer diagnosis. You've also spoken about your friend who died, and I was really struck, to be honest, to read what you wrote about him. Firstly, I'm really sorry for your loss, but the difference in that was the waiting times. It's about speed, isn't it? Your friend had to wait, I think it was over 100 days.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And there are lots of us who've had cancer and come through it sometimes experience what's known as survivor's guilt. And in so many ways it's caused completely irrational, and people watching might think, what on earth would you feel guilty about surviving cancer? But it is that contrast, and I'm afraid it's one that hits very close to my heart at the moment in terms of my friend Nat Dye, who died last week, who I actually got to know as his local MP, who came to see me with stage 4 bowel cancer, telling me that he was certain to die as a result of that late diagnosis, and who came to me actually saying, how can I help? Which was extraordinary. And there he was, like running the length and breadth of the country from John O'Groats to Land's End. He ran the London Marathon whilst playing his musical instrument, raised loads of money for Macmillan, still was teaching his kids at school as much as he possibly could, still performing in a band, and we've got a concert for him this evening. I mean, what a zest for life, but also like how outrageous it is that his life was cut tragically short. And one of the things I'm proud of in this cancer plan too, by the way, as well as improving cancer outcomes generally, we've got a really big focus on children and young people's cancer, because believe me, and again, having lost people in that respect, there's nothing worse than attending a child's funeral. It feels so unnatural. And we've got lots of rare cancers as well, who often feel they don't get a look in, despite the fact that when you take them all together, rare cancers are common. So lots in there to change the dial on cancer.
Yeah, and
I hope people are excited by it and now get behind it.
I think an awful lot of people listening are going to, really feel a connection to what you say, frankly, about that, whether or not they know someone living with cancer now, whether they've lost someone, whether they are living with cancer right now. It's a really important subject that I'm really glad we're covering on the programme today. I want to talk to you now about Lord Mandelson. He's now being investigated by the police, of course, and he's been stripped of his peerage. After the Epstein files, it's all over for him now, right? But the questions are now about whether or not he should be appointed to be US ambassador in the first place. So I want to ask a really specific question on this. The Conservatives are moving a vote later about whether or not the government should just publish and be transparent with all of the information they got when it comes to the vetting process with Lord Mandelson and that appointment. Should the government publish that? Will the government publish it? And how will you be voting later?
Yes, I think the Prime Minister's going for maximum transparency here. He's obviously drawing a line that I think people will understand and agree with, which is not releasing information where it might compromise our national security and our security services, or where there may be information in there that might undermine international relations with other countries. But apart from those exceptions, the Prime Minister is going for real transparency here. And, you know, in the last few days,
I've seen firsthand. His MPs have told him to.
Well, hang on a second, because in the last few days, I can tell you that no one needed to tell the Prime Minister that Peter Mandelson shouldn't return to public life, shouldn't return to the House of Lords, should be stripped of his peerage, should be stripped of other titles that confer on him that status that was given to him through public service. But now we have seen, far from public service and national interest, self-service and self-interest. Of course, all of that should go. And the Prime Minister's led on that, just as
I'm just going to come in, if I may.
When the first tranche of files were released.
I'm just going to come in, if I may, because I'll be honest, I do take slight issue with the fact that the government, you say the government has led on this. Condemning Peter Mandelson right now is easy, right? Because we've seen the latest files. What would be more difficult is ruling him out of being US ambassador at the advice of other people when we knew that he had a long-standing and continuing friendship with a convicted paedophile, when we knew that he stayed at Epstein's flat in Manhattan the year after he was sentenced to prison. And I think the thing that I am struggling with slightly is that now that all these leaked documents have come out, everyone says, oh, he's a really bad guy. We knew this guy was a paedophile, and we still allowed people who were associated with him to be appointed to the highest office. That's not right, is it?
No, I read your piece on it, Sophie, and I think it's rightly challenging on all of this. I think that in relation to his appointment as US ambassador, he was appointed on the basis that he had considerable experience both as this country's business secretary and as the EU Trade Commissioner. That, combined with his political experience at a sensitive time for UK-US relations and against the backdrop of global instability, it was felt that he was the right person with the right skill set. And of course, there was a vetting process, and he was asked about the relationship with Epstein. Assurances were given, and I think there's a general principle people tend to abide by, which is not presuming people to be guilty by association. What the Prime Minister was clear about when the last tranche of information from the Epstein files was released was that clearly he had not been given a full and accurate picture of that association, and he was not confident that there wasn't worse to come in these files. That is why the Prime Minister sacked him rapidly. And now, of course, we know, in a way that I think people have found genuinely shocking, that as a government minister, he was also sending the most sensitive, in some cases market-sensitive information. Now, there's a police investigation underway, as you say, and it's important that as a government minister that I don't comment on that. But I would just say I do not need a copy of the ministerial code or a copy of the law of the land in front of me to know that what Peter Mandelson did was completely outrageous. And there is a feeling of deep betrayal here. He's betrayed two prime ministers. He's betrayed his country and our national interest. He's betrayed Epstein's victims. And of course, it's right that people ask questions about the process, his appointment, sacking, and the Prime Minister will be transparent about that. I will just say one thing, though. We mustn't let Peter Mandelson off the hook in all of this. He is the person who is responsible and who is at serious fault and must now suffer the consequences of his actions both in office and since.
You went out to defend the appointment of Peter Mandelson last year in September. You said that it was understandable that he got the job, that you're not guilty by association. How do you personally feel towards him now?
I think the same as everyone else, which is just feel completely betrayed. And look, there's outrage across the political spectrum on this, and there's outrage up and down the land. I can tell you that's felt particularly acutely in the Labour Party, because we also feel this is a betrayal of our values. That's what I think we are, and there is that feeling that, you know, you think you know someone, and then you see this kind of behaviour in office as a senior government minister, and also the extent of that relationship with Epstein after his conviction. And at the heart of this, and this is something that, you know, as a government we've been doing a lot of campaigning on and a lot of focus on in terms of changing the dial for victims of violence against women and girls. And at the heart of where things have gone so badly wrong in this country has been women and girls not being believed when they come forward. And here we are with now a convicted and notorious paedophile having got away with it in life because those women and girls were not believed because they were making allegations about someone in a position of power and authority with widespread connections. And I think that is a sobering lesson for everyone here. We mustn't have a situation where power and privilege protects against justice. And that is something that requires culture change as well as changes to law and practice.
Wes Streeting, we are out of time. Thank you very much for speaking to us today.